How's it going, everyone? And welcome back to the Back Pocket Podcast. I know it's been a while. We've been busy back in school, second semester of our freshman year in college, but it's draft season, which means it's the most exciting time of the year to be a subscriber and a follower of the Back Pocket. I'm Dylan Shalom here in Amherst, Massachusetts, visited or joined by Suraj Kadali in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Charlie Nidell in Syracuse, New York. You guys have any opening statements for the show?
Yeah, I'm already kind of really into my draft research now, so I'm so excited to talk about really kind of some of the prospects that are obviously be at the combine and really who I think is overrated, underrated. We're gonna be talking about all that. So yeah, excited to get in the video.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. I love draft season. I think we all love draft season. It's just sort of a time where we get to like really just watch football even though football season's over. I think that's the most like appealing part of it. You get to just stay up to date with football stuff. I know I used to like do nothing in the offseason. I'd be stunned whenever anything happened in the next season. But I think just staying on top of things is so much fun. Just knowing the inside scoop on most things it's just a lot of fun.
No,
Yeah, what I found the most fun about this is just I think how vigorous you have to be in order to have an accurate mock draft, to be able to have an accurate reading of a player. It's so easy to go into the draft. Like, I'll even say last season, I went into the draft because I wasn't a part of the draft process last year with you guys. I was busy with senior year schoolwork. I took a back seat, and I had no idea what was going to happen anywhere past round one. But I remember 2021. I think by the end of this process, I was able to go 7 rounds. And I thought that whole process was so fun and so exciting. And we're very happy to have people to come along and join us. We're going to start with the biggest topic that we can, and that is the top 3. The big 3 quarterbacks in this draft. Is this a potential of the next Manning, Roethlisberger, and Rivers? Or is this just another quarterback class full of busts? What do you guys think? Where do we have Drake May, Caleb Williams, and Jaden Daniels? Not in that order for me, but let's hear it.
Yeah, for me, I think since I really just started the draft process, I've always really had Caleb Williams as my number one guy. I don't think he is. I don't think he is a generational prospect, considering he is flawed and will definitely kind of have these growing pains as a rookie more so than um, a supposed generational prospect. That being said, his tools are just that, in my opinion. I think the arm talent he has when he goes into the league is just special. I don't think he has the pure arm strength that maybe some of the guys in the league have, but the way where he's able to deliver from every single arm angle, can throw the ball, can be one of those rare guys who really is kind of scrambling outside the pocket and can throw the ball really just across the field and not be concerned that it's a guaranteed interception. You can also, with him, really has great rushing ability as well at this stage right now. And I think he is someone that has elite potential as who could be one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the league from the minute he steps on the field because of that rushing ability. Where I think even though his passing ability isn't to that level right now in terms of polishness, I think the running ability might make him one of the better dual threat quarterbacks in the league the minute he steps on the field. So he's my QB1. Yeah, I'll let you guys talk about that first.
Yeah, I think that Dylan, you preface this with, is this a Manning, Rivers, and Big Ben draft class? I think this is more of a Lawrence Wilson and Lance draft class.
Ooh.
This is
Ooh.
not, this is, I've said it before, like I'll say it till the day that these guys get drafted. I don't think that this is the quarterback draft class that it's hyped up to be. I just don't. I think that Williams is a fine quarterback. Serge, you said it well, like he's
Fine
not
quarterback.
generational. No, everyone slates him, and I think this is the reason that he is the most overrated player in this entire draft. Not because he's bad, not because I don't think he should be the number one overall pick, but because of the comparisons that are made.
But that happens in all sports media. There's
It's different.
always going to be a comparison that's absurd. Malik
No,
Willis got Lamar Jackson comparisons. Like,
right, but Malik Willis was also incredibly overrated and went in the third round, and that was made obvious. So this is not like the fact that Caleb Williams is being compared to Patrick Mahomes pisses me off to another level. because you cannot in your right mind tell me that Caleb Williams is going to come into the NFL and win 3 Super Bowls in his first 7 seasons.
So I hear you. And
Mhm.
I agree with you. But I'm gonna phrase to you the question: who's your player comparison for Caleb Williams if it's not Patrick Mahomes? Because I know he's
Um,
not gonna be Mahomes, but if you look at stylistic ways of the way they play, I think Patrick Mahomes is the closest in terms of the way that they play football that you're gonna get.
it's a really interesting thing to bring up because I was thinking about it. I've been thinking about it. I don't have a super accurate comparison for Caleb Williams. I would tell you the most accurate I can get is Jordan Love.
All
Mm,
Um,
right. I
and I
mean,
think,
Jordan Love in
there
college. Jordan Love
well,
in
there is something
college.
to be said about it because Jordan Love was another quarterback who was compared to Patrick Mahomes out of the draft. So there is something there. Mahomes is definitely not some outrageous in terms of style comparison for Caleb Williams, but I just don't see how you can compare anyone to Patrick Mahomes at this point. Just how we don't compare anyone to Tom Brady, you don't compare players to Patrick Mahomes. And it just
But I
does
think you're
it's
missing the point, though. I think you're missing the point that it's not they're gonna be Patrick Mahomes. It's that the way they play, their upside,
No,
the
but
way
but
that
I don't think there's anyone that has ever played like Mahomes or will play like Mahomes necessarily. So
people
that's
have
what I'm
said
saying.
that
It's not
about Joe Montana. Like the world
mhm.
progresses. The greats are the greats, but
yes, but
players
I
can.
but Mahomes, the world is not progressing to the point where like Mahomes is still only 29 years old.
No, I know,
28.
but I know what you're trying to say. That Caleb Williams will not be as good as Mahomes, and it's disrespectful to even put him in a conversation that he can meet that. And I hear you. I do agree with you that he won't be as good as Mahomes because how can you be? But when you're going through a player comparison, because that's what you're really looking at, when you're going through a player comparison, you're taking the liberty of comparing the styles. You see, earlier this year, I said that Tua can play like Tom Brady. I wasn't saying that Tua is
And
going to
it's
be as
no
good
no
as
no.
Tom Brady. I said Tua can play like Tom Brady. Earlier this year, I said that Anthony Richardson can play like Lamar Jackson. These are, I'm not saying that they're mutually exclusive, that they are the same player, but they can play in similar manners. So that's really what I hear when I hear Caleb Williams and Patrick Mahomes' names put together.
No, I get
Yeah.
that, and I understand what you're saying because I've made comparisons like that before. It's not like I know exactly what you're saying. I just think that even stylistically, it's hard to compare Mahomes to anyone right now because we can all agree that Mahomes does things that we've never seen any other quarterback do. And like I'm not saying this is the only thing that sets apart Mahomes, but like we're not going to see Caleb Williams come out and throw left-handed passes. We're not going to see him do the things that Mahomes does, even
I
on
think
a
he might
lower
be able to
level.
do it, but I think maybe
He might
obviously
be
won't have the
able
same
to, but
consistency.
there's no I just don't think there's a reasonable way to compare the style of Mahomes to really anyone coming out of college just because we haven't even seen Caleb Williams' style in the NFL. This is not like, I think that's why it's so harsh to compare someone who we have never seen play at the highest level to one of the all-time greats, even
No,
when
I
it
hear you.
comes to
I hear you.
style.
Mhm.
I hear
Well,
Even
you.
I
when it comes
think
to style.
well, I think kind of when I agree with Dylan's point that I think when you're making player comparisons, a lot of it is down to style and not um and obviously not how good they will be compared to that guy. But I think with Caleb and Mahomes, I kind of it's harder for me to find to have that comparison. I think like there are definitely some similarities, but like obviously their scrambling ability and just obviously their ability to throw from any arm angle. But one difference to me, I think, and one of Mahomes' best traits that I think Caleb is still struggling with is pocket presence. And I think that's something where I think Mahomes is one of the greatest has one of the best pocket presences, not just in the league, but I would say of all time. The way he's kind of able to avoid sacks not just outside the pocket, but inside. I think Caleb obviously has that potential, but a lot of the time his clock is kind of just somewhere where he wants to stand in the pocket and then just run out rather than kind of be a little bit more intricate. And I think
Yeah.
in that way, maybe I wouldn't compare him to him. And one of the other guys I would kind of make a comparison to is a taller version of Kyler Murray, someone who really I think has better rushing ability than Mahomes, Caleb, and Kyler Murray, but also I wouldn't say has that same level of pocket presence as Mahomes, where I think I would say Caleb kind of is more similar to Kyler in that aspect. So I would say that would probably be my comparison. But like I said, I think with Caleb Williams, I don't even want to put a ceiling on it. I think the sky's the limit for him. obviously it's going to be hard to beat Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or any of these top quarterbacks in the league, but
I
the
just
sky's the limit for him.
look, and I get it. And I think that this is a guy who it's clear he's a good quarterback and he's got a lot of potential. And everyone's saying that he could be the next Mahomes, whatever it is. Forget that, my fundamental problems with people saying that. I see it. I understand it. I get why they're saying it. But I think that it's just part of the reason that I don't love Caleb Williams that much is just because the expectations being put on him are so high. And you see that often, like a lot of the time, when expectations are so high, even if a player is good, but not as high as his expectations were set, he's regarded as bad. There's no, it's hard. I think we've seen it a lot recently. You know, it's hard to name particular players, but we saw with like
Trevor
um
Lawrence. Trevor
Trevor
Lawrence,
Lawrence.
like
Trevor Lawrence, who I think is a
Mhm.
good quarterback in the NFL, the expectations were that he'd be a Super Bowl winning quarterback, and he hasn't done that yet. So people see Trevor Lawrence and they say that's a bust. But
I
it's
wouldn't say
just
so.
I have seen
I'm
countless
close to
people say
saying
that.
so.
I mean, there are definitely a lot of reasons that people have said that. So it's hard to put such high expectations on someone who, especially, didn't necessarily win that much in college. I'm talking at a team level, not an individual level. Um, People said he might have been throwing a little bit, so he wouldn't be the number one pick. I don't think that's possible. I don't think that that's what happened.
No.
Um, but what was it, an 8-4 season at USC
Mhm.
this year, which
That
is just,
defense
it's
is
just
horrible, though.
But
That
look,
defense.
defense being horrible
that
or
being said,
not, it's 8-4.
that team was
It's
supposed to go and play in the college football playoff this year. That
And
team
but
was
that, I
supposed
think
and
not only
he
was the defense,
underperformed as
but
well.
I
Yeah,
wouldn't
he
even
did.
say so. I
He
mean,
did.
I think
He did.
I wouldn't say so. I mean, I think well compared to last season, sure, he didn't have as good of a season as
You're
last year.
supposed to improve. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
It is so hard to improve though
I
from a
know, I know,
Heisman
I know.
season where
And
he
I
was.
still have him as my number one player on the board by a considerable margin.
But
But it,
I would say that not only did he have a terrible defense, but I don't even think the offensive weapons were that good too. Other than Brendan Rice, there's not really anyone there that I would say is a day two pick in this year's draft. So I think he was basically the team, and they still went to 8-4. So I actually take that as more of a positive. Not to mention the Pac-12 was one of the better
yeah,
conferences in
yeah.
college football this year. So I think he's had two. I think throughout his entire college career, he's been great. And I don't think there's anything to suggest that really he could have that anything to suggest that he did anything these past years that would put him lower on draft boards. And that's why I am still very high on Caleb Williams. And although I don't say he's a generational guy, I think there are very few guys. And if you're generational, you're like once in a generation. I wouldn't say he's the
Yeah, the
perfect
word
prospect.
generational has been used too
Mhm.
much.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
I don't think he's the perfect prospect necessarily, but I also think he's a prospect that has higher potential than you would see from a number one pick in an average draft class. So that's what I
So
would say.
so let's shift over now to Drake May,
Mhm.
who I came into this process very uneducated. I wasn't very high on him. I've done a lot of research on him, and I have thoroughly changed my mind. I'm a big fan of Drake May. I think he has all the tools that it takes to be the number one pick in a normal draft class, but right now we have a unicorn. So, what are your guys' thoughts on Drake May?
Yeah, I mean with Drake May, I think one of the things that kind of when I looked at him more, one of the things that is kind of that was a narrative that I think is like not actually as true as it is he's the most in structure quarterback. That's not actually really true in my opinion. I think when you see him, he's making a lot of plays out of structure, just in a different way that Caleb Williams is. He isn't necessarily a magician or an artist like Caleb, but he's more kind of someone that will just get out of the pocket, hard to get down. Even if he's got a guy on him, he's still able to make a incredible throw. I saw that one. I don't remember who that one throw against where he's kind of being dragged to the ground. There was a ball in the
Yeah,
corner of the end
yeah.
zone. He's got that similar incredible talent. I don't know what to make a pro. I've seen some people compare him to Justin Herbert. I think that's a lofty comparison, but I think you can definitely see some resemblance based on like the kind of the figure. I wouldn't say that necessarily. I think he plays a bit different from Justin Herbert. I think he's also a bit more kind of, at least as a college prospect, not talking about Herbert in the NFL, he's a bit more kind of aggressive, which also can lead to him obviously making a few more mistakes. But I think like you said, would be a number one pick in a lot of draft classes. Even though we know what happened with C.J. Stroud, I think he would have been the number one pick in last year's draft class over him and Bryce Young. So I really like Drake May. I similarly don't think that he is someone that is like again very like more mature than Caleb. I wouldn't say that necessarily because there are also deficiencies to his game as well. But I also think he's an excellent prospect and would be worthy of the number one pick.
Yeah, I'm sort of in between on Drake May. I think that a lot of what I'm seeing is pretty accurate to my thoughts on May. I think he is the consensus number two quarterback in this draft, and that's just sort of it. I think he, as you said, Surge, doesn't get a lot of hype because of Caleb. Um, I don't think he's great. I think he's got the potential, the ceiling to be great. But as of right now, I could see Drake May as the guy who sort of takes some time to adjust to the NFL because there are a lot of weaknesses in Drake May's game that I think are only going to be sort of ripped even further when he gets to the NFL. And I do think he has the pieces to put them back together. But I think the holes we could see just I think a lot of the problems that he faced at UNC were failing to pick up on delayed blitzes and stunts, and just those are things that you're going to see more from more experienced NFL defenses
Mm.
that, you know, stunts in coverage, stunts on blitzes that are just kind of you don't see as much at the college level, and he wasn't very good at that at the college level. Now he's got room to improve, and I do think he can do it. Um, and in terms of comparison, you said Justin Herbert. I see Justin Herbert. I see a little bit of Sam Howell. He's better than Sam Howell, probably already better than Sam Howell. But in terms of play style, that sort of playmaker in him, that Sam Howell, he clearly has the playmaker in him. He just was a little inaccurate at times, doesn't have the top end arm strength that May has. But I think that I definitely see a lot of those more pass focused quarterbacks, but definitely have the ability to improvise at a different level than those like Mahomes and Lamar and Caleb Williams. So I think I see a lot of room to grow for May, but not necessarily a starter day one in an ideal world.
Yeah, I
So
agree, but I think he ends up will be because he's
He
going to be
he
the
will
second
be
pick.
he
because of
has
where
to
he
be.
goes.
Mhm.
He will be
Yeah.
because of where he goes, but I think in an ideal world for him, just like how I said this with Anthony Richardson last year. Look, I was wrong about Richardson. Richardson looked great in the first couple games, but I think in an ideal world, he would be back up maybe even just for 4 games or 6 games, just
Hmm.
to get him a little more time to get used to NFL defenses.
Hmm.
Okay, so for me, my quip with Drake May is not one that is his own fault. It's that he has not played in an NFL style offense yet. And it's just
Part
he's
of
gonna
the
be
getting used to the NFL game.
he's gonna get thrown into the fire wherever he goes. Because if it's New England, they are not starting Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi. If it's Washington, they're not starting Sam Howell. So he's gonna have to be the guy from day one.
I
But
mean, I
the
will.
good
What I?
news
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
the good news is that he's a great quarterback, and I think he can do it.
He
He
has the
has
tools, absolutely.
all of the
Hmm.
tools that you could possibly want from your starting quarterback and more. He's a guy who cerebrally, I think, is the soundest quarterback in the class, and then can also make the plays outside the pocket, inside the pocket. He has an arm that can reach the crossbar from 83 yards away. I think if anyone else saw that clip, he launched a ball, hit
Hmm.
the crossbar 83 yards away. He
That's
has
nuts.
a nuke of an arm. He has zip on a throw that matches that of a Justin Herbert.
Mhm.
And stylistically, and this is going to sound really weird, my comparison is Brock Purdy, which
No.
I
Hmm.
mean, it's not. I think he can be the better Brock Purdy, but I think it makes sense in the way that he gets away from pressure, makes a play, but he also
It's not
knows what
right.
he's a
It's not
part of.
right.
You don't think it's right? Where is it not
I
right?
guess
Stylistically, it's so different because Drake
stylistically,
May
I
has
mean,
so much more to his arm than Brock Purdy does.
No, I see. I know.
yeah.
That's why I said he can be better. But by the way that they play, the closest thing that I saw was Brock Purdy because Justin Herbert, and it might just be because the Chargers did not have an adequate enough line to support him staying in the pocket. Justin Herbert was not able to do what Drake May does in the pocket just because of limitations. So
But I
I
think
And
think,
I
that
think also playing as NFL competition compared to college
yeah,
competition is
of
factored
course,
into
of
that
yeah,
too.
course.
and I think it's a hard comparison to make to Brock Purdy just because the way I look at it is San Fran built their offense around, the abilities of Brock Purdy, and that's, not to get too much into Brock Purdy because we talked about him so much since they went to the Super Bowl, but Purdy, there's almost no deep ball in San Fran's game.
Yeah,
They
that's
throw
true.
it, but not super often. Any offense that Drake May goes into needs to have a deep ball.
No, that's
Mhm.
right. And
If he
I
can
did,
launch the ball 83 yards, the realistic the only players that could maybe do that are Mahomes and Herbert and Josh Allen.
I mean, I
I see a
didn't.
lot of Josh Allen in Drake May's game,
I
He's too
can see
smart.
that.
He's too smart. He's too
I
smart.
see that.
but I think that he's too smart at the college level.
No,
At
I
the
see.
NFL
I
level,
see. I
that'll
see.
change.
I see. No, I do see
But
that
I see a
because
lot of Josh Allen, he's not as good of a runner as Josh Allen because Josh Allen is
Josh Allen's a lot
probably
of
the
fun with that.
second best runner in the NFL. Um,
Mhm.
very
running
different
quarterback.
style of runner,
Let's say running quarterback.
running quarterback in the
Yeah.
NFL.
Mhm.
Sorry. Um, but I think Drake May is smarter than Allen, so there's a little give or take there. But I think that when you see that deep ball and the way that Buffalo plays, I think the
Mm.
scheme, the playbook that Buffalo utilize could be a real, Drake May could be a beneficiary of something like that, something similar.
Yeah. When you talk about that, one thing that kind of um comes to mind is that I think I was telling Dylan this. I saw like Benjamin Albright, he posted a mock draft of what he thinks we'll have with the top 5 picks. And the first 2 picks he had Caleb to the Bears and Daniels to the Commanders. And then the third pick had the Patriots trading out of it, which we've heard a bit of buzz about that. So what if he goes to a team like, I don't know, the New York Giants, who kind of have
Look,
a coach like Brian Dable who worked with the Josh Allen, going
no,
with a guy like Drake May, who I would say is kind of a
it's
neutered version of
yeah,
a neutered Josh Allen, which could be a possible comparison because he has great, obviously, arm strength and good running ability, but it's obviously not to the level of Josh Allen. And that's probably why he doesn't try and make the same throws that Josh Allen does that will be great players or get him in trouble. But I think at the same time, having the Giants get a guy like that would be, I think, awesome for Drake May, and I think it would put him in a good situation because
yeah.
I
I
think
think
with
the
the
New York Giants is an ideal landing spot for Drake May. And as a
mm,
Giants fan, I can't say I would be totally thrilled with the pick, but I would be thrilled with the upside of the pick because I think the Giants is a great landing spot because as I talked about earlier, Daniel Jones is still at the Giants, so I think Drake May could sit a few weeks. And I think because the Giants, Joe Shane did say a couple days ago that he is very confident with Jones as his QB1 going into next season. Now, that could be a bluff, that could be a smokescreen, whatever it is. But I think
mm,
Drake May could use a few games to learn, and the Giants scheme, because their head coach is a former Bills offensive coordinator, is very similar to the Buffalo Bills. They rely, a good amount on the run game, and they also, in terms of how they throw the ball, it's a lot of short passes with, now they've got Jalen Hyatt, a lot of a lot of deep balls. So there's Daniel Jones was one of the most accurate, one of the best deep ball passers 2 seasons ago. I believe the number one deep ball passer above
Number two.
expected rating or number
Oh,
two
above.
deep
Okay,
ball.
okay.
I don't remember exactly what it is, but he was up there for deep balls, and that's something that Drake May is better at than Daniel Jones because he's just got so much more of an arm. So I think the Giants is a very, very ideal landing spot for Drake May just because he's going into a pretty developed team already, a team that was in the playoffs 2 seasons ago.
So
yeah,
I'm not gonna really preach on this much more, but I think you guys are a little bit overstepping with the Bills. I don't think it's that common of a fit to see May and Al. I just don't see it. I'm not gonna really. I'll take a little explanation. I don't want to make it a tangent, but I don't see it even slightly. Like he has arm strength. He has arm strength, but he also has so much more than that. And Allen, I'm not saying he doesn't have more than that because Allen is a game breaker. He plays games with his legs. He's a great quarterback. I'm coming in here as a Josh Allen hater, and I am one. But as an analyst, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you he's a
No,
bad
it's a
quarterback.
very lofty
mm,
ceiling.
yeah. And
But
again, like I said, I'm saying I'm trying to compare
I
them.
was actually
I know
I
we've
was
just
a
compared Caleb to
no, I was approaching
Mahomes
it from I was approaching it
May
from
to
the fact that
Allen.
I think that May is a more complete quarterback.
Okay, well,
That that's the way I was approaching it
let's
from.
not say that Josh
Considering
Allen
we're talking
is
about the second best
a top.
quarterback or maybe third
No,
best quarterback in the
no.
As a
NFL, it's
prospect,
just
as a prospect, as a
Well,
prospect.
yeah, as a prospect, sure, but I would say Caleb's more complete prospect than Mahomes with that logic.
Yeah, no, I know. But
But
I'm just saying,
but I think we're talking about NFL comps. I can see a bit of Josh Allen, but again, when we say Caleb has traits like Mahomes and May has traits like Allen and Herbert, we are not saying they're going to be those
no,
guys.
I
But
know.
but I think when you're having NFL teams, they obviously want to they want to pick the guys that remind you of the best players in the league, like Mahomes,
But
Lamar,
I'm saying that
Allen.
I don't really think that May reminds me that much of Josh Allen, other than the deep ball, because I think May has.
And I say the rushing ability to a certain extent.
It's not
Obviously
as
not
good.
this.
It's not as good.
No, I agree. That's why I said
It's not the same
that's why I
thing.
said a neutered Josh
It's
Allen.
not
That's
even
what I
close
was
to as good. But I think what May has is a much more refined, accurate spiral, a much more, I would say, a lesser understanding of coverages than Josh Allen. Even though Josh Allen is like a weird passer, I think he is like. I preface this whole segment by saying Drake May is smarter than Josh Allen. Josh Allen is smart. He just makes stupid decisions. I would say that Drake May doesn't quite have the reading that Josh Allen has, even as a prospect.
he doesn't
But
have the bozo gene, is what you're saying.
yeah, yeah. But I said I wasn't gonna ramble. I won't ramble. Let's move
Mm.
into Jaden Daniels, who I am very, very high on. This is the I started this entire episode by saying, is this gonna be a Manning, Roethlisberger, Rivers class? Because I'm so high on these guys, and you can't promise elite quarterback play, Hall of Fame quarterback play from three quarterbacks in a row. But man, I love these guys. I think these guys are all going to be phenomenal quarterbacks. Jaden Daniels, although he might be the rawest of the bunch, he might be like I have Caleb and May right now a little ahead of him, but give it a little bit of time, and I might just have Daniels ahead of May. Who knows? I
Well,
love these.
I mean, this is going to be the one of the three that's going to shine at the combine. I think in
Is
terms
he
He's
of
running in
not
the
running.
combine? I
ath
don't
He's
know if
not
he is.
running.
athletic,
Uh,
in terms of athletic prowess, we know what he's got.
mm.
So combine or not, athletically, he's the one of these three guys that shines. Um, but I think he's also the one of these three guys who, you said it, he's a super raw prospect. He's the hardest to predict what's going to happen. We could see Lamar Jackson type things from Jaden Daniels. We could see Malik Willis type things from Jaden Daniels. We could see Anthony Richardson. We could see I just name another terrible quarterback. Like we could see Trey
Taylor
Lance.
Heineke.
Thanks. Um, but
But
like
no, I don't fully agree with that though. I think Jaden Daniels. I agree that it is a very wide range of what could happen, but he's shown more than any of those guys pre-draft, first off, and maybe not AR, but I think he's also just a much more refined pocket passer than the majority of these quarterbacks that are a hit or a miss. He can throw the ball in the
yeah,
pocket in structure and play a solid football game.
I think the absolute
Mm.
benefit that was his is I think a lot of the scramblers, and I'm gonna classify Daniels as a scrambler for now.
Yeah, I
I
hear it.
know he's a lot more, but he is primarily scouted as a scrambler. I think a lot of the ones that we see don't necessarily go to top schools. Malik Willis was touted as, the next big thing as a scrambler and played at Liberty. Lamar Jackson even played at Louisville, won a Heisman there, but it's an ACC school, not the biggest football school. Jaden Daniels got to learn in the SEC, playing at LSU, and that's developed him so much more, as you said, as a passer than these other guys that we've talked about. I think that um, this is for me, the most exciting of these three quarterbacks. I am lower on Williams than most. I'm pretty even on Drake May than I think as most people are. And I think I'm higher on Daniels than most, although it's kind of hard at this point because I think a lot of people are really high on Jaden Daniels. I
Yeah.
think that this is a very tight top three. As I said earlier, I don't know how well it's going to pan out. As I said, with the Lawrence Wilson Lance comparison, these as I've been talking about with Williams, as I've been talking about with May, I know I sounded really high on May, but I just don't know. Look, potential for all three of these guys is just about as high as anyone coming out of the draft. But I think that with high potential oftentimes comes or really low floors. I just it's so hard to predict what's going to happen with these three. And I think Daniels is
Yeah.
the hardest of the three, the biggest range. We could see someone who just doesn't end up amounting to anything at the
I
next level,
think
benched after a few games type. Like, I just don't know.
Yeah, I think I want to go back to an earlier point that Dylan had on Drake May, which is that one of the knocks you have on him is to no fault of his own that the scheme that he runs. I would kind of say the same thing. I would say the thing more about Daniels than May because I think
Really?
one of the most interesting things about the LSU offense is that they really never targeted the middle of the field. A lot of the throws were fades to Neighbors or to BTJ, and they threw outside the numbers a lot of the times. I think Daniels had the lowest amount of like completions on like kind of those inside routes like ins, crossers, digs, those kind of routes. And again, I think honestly that also can be a positive. You can spin that into a positive and say that well, targeting outside the numbers is one of the more harder throws, and I think he'll absolutely be once he kind of learns to kind of attack the middle of the field more often and kind of is more comfortable with progressions, he will definitely improve with that. But I think it's also something that kind of suggests that maybe he is also going to have a few growing pains going into the NFL as well. Um, I still think he's a great prospect, and one of the things I really like about him, and something that I've kind of taken more into account with more quarterbacks now, is their release. And I think, especially with obviously how quick defensive lines get to the quarterback nowadays, having a quick release where it just you can get the ball out of your hands like that when the defender is converging on you is huge. And I think Daniels probably has, I would say, the quickest release out of the three top quarterbacks. I think that's something that's going to make him highly coveted as well. Someone that obviously has a great deep ball as well. Rushing ability obviously speaks for itself. He won the Heisman because of that. Um, I think I have May. I would say I'm pretty comfortable having May ahead of Daniels right now, but I wouldn't be upset necessarily if the Commanders were to take Jaden Daniels because he is a prospect that also has all three of these guys realistically have in like insane ceilings. And I don't even like to use ceilings, but because I think it's hard to really cap how good a player can be. But just based on tools alone, these guys all have potential to be game breaking players. And I think Daniels is absolutely worth the risk of a top two, top three pick, which he will be a top three.
Yeah, I think you pretty much just hit the nail on the head there. I don't have that much more to say on Jaden Daniels. I fully agree with the middle of the field, but I also think his rushing upside, if he doesn't see the read that he wants on the outside, there's a safety blanket in the inside that he doesn't fully trust his arm on. He can go and take off and he can be fine. Obviously, it's not the right way to develop as a quarterback young. You want to be able to go through
No,
one,
but you
two,
should
three, four
trust your
reads,
gifts as well. I mean,
but
you don't
trust
want
your
to,
gifts. Yeah.
yeah,
I,
exactly.
I, I
That's important.
think I think with every pitfall with Daniels, there's a very much stronger strength that he has. So
I agree.
I feel very strongly about Jaden Daniels being a consistent NFL starter at the lowest from day one. So we said we are going to go into wide receivers now. I think we can be pretty quick with this because the top three is Harrison, Odunze, Neighbors. That order, I still don't have a grasp on what I want. Like, I don't know who I prefer between Odunze and Neighbors. They have such different
Hmm.
skill sets, but they're just so equally as good as each other. Uh, Honestly, enlighten me, both of you, because I don't have a choice.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think the Adunze and Marv are kind of I think well Marv is Marv. He's like a superhuman. He's one of the best wide receiver prospects to come
This is the
out
best
since
receiver
I would say.
prospect I've seen in since, well, him and Jamar Chase. Let's
Oh
put
yeah,
them in that
him
tier.
I would say those two are by far, I would say I agree, the best wide receiver draft prospects in my life.
Yeah.
At least since I've followed the draft.
Yes.
Um I think he is also pretty decently similar with Adunze in the sense that I think Adunze is also really good at kind of ball tracking, contested catches. Obviously, I think Marv is more. I think Marv is more athletically gifted in the sense that he is just. I mean, he's got everything basically. He's like. I mean, I know I just keep calling him a superhuman, but that's just what he is. I literally watched him. I've watched him in person. There's no way to guard this guy.
It's like Calvin Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald combined. Like,
Mm.
I don't,
But
it's yeah.
I think Adunze
That's
has kind of
like I agree that he's that good, but
I think
it's
Adunze
crazy.
plays like
I know.
him and is also like I think Adunze also has a lot to offer. And kind of if you miss out on Marv, Adunze is probably the best consolation prize you can possibly get because in a lot of draft classes he would be receiver one, just like Malik Neighbors would be receiver one. In this draft class, I think I would take Neighbors just because I prioritize. I think in nowadays with kind of the quote unquote Shanahan scheme being more and more popular now, I think a lot of teams really rely on yards after catch. And I think Marv obviously can do that well. And I think Dunze is also capable of doing that, but Neighbors is special with that. And I think for that reason, he's going to be, I would take him over Dunze with that because I think his route running is superb. He can operate from the slot from as a kind of a Z type of receiver as well. I think he's going to be someone that you can manufacture touches to, and he's going to make plays. And I think he can win in a lot of ways. And obviously, Odunze can too because he's a great route runner as well, especially for his size, and obviously has the contested catch advantage over Neighbors. So it is a matter of preference. I would take Neighbors. I would take him for that reason. But I think if a team were to take a Dunze over him, I would not be surprised, nor would I be like, that's a bad pick because Dunze special as well. All three of these guys are realistically. Just Marv is
Yeah,
different.
yeah, I'm gonna agree with you, Serge, and I have no problem making these lofty comparisons for Marvin Harrison because this is, as we said, this is the best player in the draft class.
No,
This is the
but
this is the only generational player in this draft class. This is, we talk about how that word is used too much. Caleb Williams is not generational. Marvin Harrison is generational. This is the kind of guy that could come into the league and, in my mind, break this is not going to happen. But this is the only one who has that chance of he could break the single season receiving yards record in his rookie year. He's already that good. This is,
Mm-hmm.
if we're taking off value off of talent, this is the number one pick in the draft. This is the number one pick in almost every draft.
Yeah, disregarding positional value, I would agree.
Disregarding positional value. That being said, Odunze and Neighbors, I have no problem taking either of them as the number one receiver in most NFL drafts. Take out Marvin Harrison, Odunze could be the number one pick or the number one receiver, and so could Neighbors. Last year, if you put any of the three of them in, they're the number one receiver in the draft. 2 years ago, any one of them, number one receiver in the draft. This is that good of a receiver class. These three guys are that good. They could all be top 5 picks in my mind. This is unbelievable. To get into the difference between Odunze and Neighbors, I think you highlighted it really well. I am a little bit lower on Odunze than most people just because I'm just not as sure with Odunze as I am with Neighbors. I think Neighbors is going to provide instant value to any team he goes to. And I think Odunze will too, because I, again, think he could be the number one receiver in this class. But I think that Neighbors a little bit more so just because of, as you said, the way the NFL's evolving with receivers like Deebo Samuel and DJ Moore, how run after catch is so important. And it's just sort of amazing to me that we somehow got all three of these guys in the same draft. As a Giants fan, the guy that I've wanted for a long time is Malik Neighbors, just because I think I'm going to say it's going to sound a little bit weird, but I think he's the Jahmyr Gibbs of this draft class, meaning you've got Marvin Harrison and then
okay,
you've got
I hear
Malik
it.
Neighbors.
I hear it.
Last year you had Bijan Robinson, and then you've got Jahmyr Gibbs, but Gibbs outperformed Bijan in year one. And I think that you could absolutely see Neighbors outperform, or Odunze for that matter, outperform Marvin Harrison in year one.
I mean, situation's important, so I see it.
Situation's very important. Gibbs went into a much better situation than Bijan. I think because Harrison could go to like New England at pick 3 or, somewhere slightly less ready for him. Whereas I could see Neighbors going into a New York Giants team that is a little bit going to be a little more ready than whoever else. But that being said, Daniel Jeremiah agrees in his top 50, his number one player is Caleb Williams, then 2, 3, and 4 are these three receivers in the order of Harrison, Odunze, and Neighbors. But yeah, for me, Neighbors is going to be my number 2 receiver this year. I think the run after catch, and he's got really, really great hands. A part of his game that is sort of under recognized, underappreciated, great hands. Malik Neighbors. Odunze's got them too, but I think in terms of overall value that they're bringing to the team, as tight as it is, I'm more of a Neighbors guy.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I hear you guys. Before this, was a little pro Odunze, I guess, but it wasn't really a strong opinion. I agree with what you guys are saying. I do like that there's like you were saying, Sarge, there's multiple facets that neighbors can beat you, and I'm not saying that's not true for Odunze, but I think it is more relevant. And Charlie, I do agree with you that Odunze, like I am sure that he'll be a baller,
Yeah.
but I'm just not sure to the extent that I am with neighbors. There's a little
Yeah,
less
yeah,
of
yeah.
room for failure. Yeah, I
Neighbors
mean,
just got a lot of Jamar Chase in them. I mean,
yeah,
we
I
talked
agree
about a
with
little
what
bit of
both
Jamar
of you
Chase
guys are
earlier,
saying,
but
but you know what that takes us to? That does take us down the list. We've got 10 teams. We've got 3 people. Let's just rattle them off. What order we want to go in? I have my full list down. I don't know what you guys have ready. I can go first. Let's order it however you guys want to go.
we can go
So,
Dylan, Surge, me.
all right.
Yeah.
Keep it how we've been
My
talking a little
first
bit.
pick, not much of an explanation needed. The Chicago Bears select Caleb Williams. Yeah.
Yeah. Caleb
Um,
Williams.
if we're talking trades, this is a trade down.
You think they
Uh,
trade
I think this is the trade down spot. I
Considering that
think,
Justin Fields is about to get traded as we speak.
I think he's gone. Fields is
but
gone.
I'm saying this as I think Justin Fields does not get traded. I think they would be better off trading the pick than Justin Fields.
But you are not Ryan Poles. They are going to.
I
they
am
are-
not. No.
They are going to trade Justin.
Well, are we
Fields.
picking based on what we think is going to happen or what we would do?
What we think.
What we think?
Yeah, what we think is going to happen. It's going to be Caleb Williams. Fine.
Okay.
All
All right. So 2 to Washington. That's going to be Drake May. I think at this point, that's where we go.
I think Drake May would not be surprised with Jaden though.
I see it.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you guys. Drake May here.
So 3, and this is where I have my first trade. I do have the Patriots trading away the number 3 pick because I don't think they're ready to take on the responsibility of developing a new quarterback when they literally have no talent on their roster right now. I have Denver coming in and swooping Jaden Daniels at 3.
I don't see that just because I don't think Jaden Daniels is really a Sean Payton type of quarterback because the amount of times you see him play out of structure.
I know what you're saying,
Yeah.
and I think that that's going to get overwritten by Denver, who see the talent and know that Sean Payton doesn't have that much time left there.
All right. I'm gonna say New England keep the pick, and I think at the end of the day, like I said, you need a franchise guy to win a Super Bowl. The Patriots will take that in consideration and take Jaden Daniels, especially considering next year's draft class. Not as highly touted with quarterbacks. I think Daniels goes 3.
Okay, here's going to be like my crazy bold prediction here. I just saw this randomly and I thought it was really cool, so I'm gonna follow this. Number 3 is going to be traded, and Jaden Daniels is going to go to the Minnesota Vikings.
Ooh, I like that.
All right,
Justin Jefferson gets shipped to New England.
Nope.
Whoa.
Nope.
And Jaden Daniels goes to the Vikings.
No chance. No.
You see, this is where we go into fantasy land right now.
No chance.
This is like I don't know where I saw this. I don't know exactly how the Vikings can trade up for this pick without Justin Jefferson is the problem.
You gotta
but
give
I
them,
think
up their next year's first, probably this year's second. I don't think they give.
Look, I think it'll be Viking. Whether or not it's Justin Jefferson, I just think that it's not necessarily a terrible idea for the Vikings to consider getting rid of Jefferson. Jefferson's the Lamborghini sitting next to the terrible rundown house. But the Vikings have Jordan Addison, who was unbelievably impressive in year 1. And now to get him a quarterback who's the successor for Cousins, I don't see it. Look, it's unrealistic. That's why I'm making this as my unrealistic pick. The Vikings move up to 3, and I think that it's going to take Justin Jefferson to do that.
No, I think
so. You're
like
Quesia
the idea.
Mensa. So right now you are sitting in the Vikings boardroom. You're Quesia Dofo Mensa, and you say, 1 second, I have Kirk Cousins that I could pay for 2 years, or I blow up everything that we have built and get Jaden Daniels.
Let's blow up everything. They haven't built anything.
They just won 12 games 2 years ago. 13
And what about last year?
Last year, Kirk got hurt. Last year
and
was
Kirk
a year
is
that
aging.
they could have
I think.
I'm not
Kirk,
saying this is going to happen absolutely,
I don't know
but
if
this
they're
is
keeping Kirk. So I like the idea of trading up for Jaden Daniels. They give
maybe
up
not for Justin Jefferson.
I think first of all, I think if the chances that Justin Jefferson is traded is nearly 0. I know everyone.
I'm not saying this is necessarily for Justin Jefferson, but I think that this is the Vikings trade up spot.
Oh no, I like that. I do like that. I just don't think
You
they
know,
would trade
just
Justin
not
Jefferson,
Yeah,
not
okay,
especially
maybe
in
Jefferson.
not
this
for
kind of
Jefferson.
trade.
Maybe not for
Not in
Jefferson.
this kind of trade, but like, yeah. All right,
Whatever.
fourth pick.
Fine.
All right, so 4 Arizona, Marvin Harrison, pretty straightforward.
Yeah, Marv. It's easy.
Yeah, it's gonna be Harrison because this is the best player on the draft.
So I've been giving you guys stick. This is one that I'm expecting stick for. I have 5. The Raiders are going to trade into 5
Okay.
and take JJ McCarthy.
Mm. Yeah, I mean he's
I
been
have the
rising
Kill
Raiders.
me
up.
now. Holy
No,
Jesus
he's
Christ.
he's been rising up draft board, so I
Nah,
totally see
stop.
it. But he's no, I'm saying it's what we think. I could definitely see this happening. He's not a
The
top 5
only
worthy
thing,
pick. He's a top 10 borderline, top 15. I say he is, but
so I think he's top 10. I think he's top 10. And I think they do this just to get in front of Atlanta, who would have taken him at 8. The thing that
I
makes this
see.
unrealistic is that the Chargers and the Raiders are just not going to do business with each other. So I should have thought about that.
Mm,
But I don't see the Chargers taking a receiver here. I think they need to trade out of this pick because they don't have enough talent to try to play the 1-2 show like Burrow and Chase did in their first year. They can't really do that. I
mm,
think what they have to do, especially with Harbaugh, they need to build the trenches, get a bunch of picks, and trade out. I did Vegas because I had just done Denver and there wasn't really anyone else other than, I mean, maybe New England could trade back up or maybe Minnesota could go. But then if you're Minnesota, you're at 11, you probably could you take the risk that Atlanta don't take JJ and wait. So I thought Vegas might be the right pick there, but they're not going to do business with the Chargers. So I probably should have thought that out more, but it was my official pick, so I'll keep it there.
I will say pick 5 for me. I'll say Joe Alt. I shifted from Brock Bowers to Joe Alt. I think Harbaugh's can prioritize the trenches and giving the Chargers Alt and Rashawn Slater tackle duo is probably one of the better ones in the league from the get go. Because I am high on Joe Alt and I obviously like Rashawn Slater and need to protect Justin Herbert. It's a deep receiver class. I think they invest in that later. So yeah, give me Alt.
Yeah, I think it's between 3 guys here. For me, it's Alt, Neighbors, and Bowers. And I think their pick will be Alt because I think the tackle spot for them right now is the most important of those 3 positions. So give me Alt.
Giants get in at 6, and they do take Malik Neighbors. Just I have a Dunze and Neighbors practically being the same player, like not stylistically, just like same ranking. But
Mhm.
Neighbors fits the Giants better, so I think that's the pick.
Yeah, I agree. I think Neighbors will be the pick. I don't think wide receiver is necessarily as big of a need for the Giants as some people may say, but best player on the board, help
It is.
whoever the quarterback is next year. Yeah, Neighbors to the Giants.
No, yeah, Neighbors is the right pick here. I think Neighbors and Odunze is really close, but I see Neighbors is more of a true wide receiver 1 than Odunze, who I think has the talent and the skills to be a wide receiver 1, but I think he would benefit from being a wide receiver 2 in a system where he can be more of a deep threat, more of just someone who could take the top off of anybody. And the Giants can't give him that right now. We need a number 1 receiver, and that's Malik Neighbors.
7, Tennessee. I have the first O lineman off the board. A lot of people don't have Alt here. If you don't have Alt here, you got to reevaluate. It's Joe Alt.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Alt's the best.
You
But
had him
he is
going
not.
ahead. That's fine.
Yeah, he is not available here. I'm gonna call an audible. I'm gonna say JC Latham. I think he's someone that's really gonna rise up boards. Someone I think Tennessee are a team that even without Derrick Henry is still gonna want to run the ball well with Brian Callahan. I think Latham isn't necessarily a polished in terms of the running game, but he's better than Olu, and he's also a great pass protector. Give me Latham to the Titans.
Yeah, Latham, I think the biggest thing he's a really great run blocker.
Mhm.
Latham, like that's his thing. He's the nastiest run blocker probably in the class. I'm gonna deviate a little bit. I'm gonna say Talise Fuaga, just because I think he's a slightly better fit for the Titans. I think this is the pick where
Wait, you
they
have
want
Fuaga
Joe Alt.
overall?
No, I
Yeah.
have Alt at 5.
Oh, you had all two. My fault. My fault.
But I think they really want Alt here. And it's gonna happen if he doesn't go earlier, but I think Fuaga's a slightly better pick for them than Latham, but I actually agree with you. I think Latham will probably end up in the top 10 somewhere.
Mhm.
So at 8, Atlanta was waiting for McCarthy. They trade out. and they go to 15 for the Colts, who I have the Colts going in and taking Brock Bowers, and I think that's a
Mm,
good fit for them.
yeah, no, I like that. I'm also going to go with the trade as well. I'm going to say they traded to the Broncos, and the Broncos take JJ McCarthy here, leapfrogging teams like the Raiders and the Vikings. Or I don't know, they actually didn't leapfrog the Raiders, but they take JJ McCarthy and probably the prototypical quarterback that I think Sean Payne would probably want, someone that does play in structure, but also has the tools to kind of get out of a situation if he is in trouble. Yeah.
I'm going to disagree with you guys on a couple different levels here. I think the Falcons use this pick because um they need it. They absolutely need this pick. And I also just have to disagree. I cannot consciously move JJ McCarthy into my top 10 because this is just not the quarterback that you want to entrust your franchise to in my mind with this
Why
early of a
not?
pick. I
Mm,
look, I just don't think he's good enough.
Explain.
Like
I
just
think
on a bunch of different levels, I think that when you're drafting quarterbacks this early, you're looking for someone who has the tools that are,
he's
you
got the
know,
tools. I would
incredible
say
arm
so.
strength or incredible accuracy or a great scrambling ability. And for me, McCarthy has none of those three. Um,
Are you watching the same quarterback we're watching?
apparently not
I
because
would say
I
I wouldn't say he has elite arm strength. I think there are a lot of quarterbacks with great arm strength, but he has good arm strength, I would say, above average. I would say he's got above average scrambling ability. I think he is someone that I would consider. I would say he does. I think earlier in the season, you would see probably he was a bit more aggressive than he was later in the season, and he's played in an NFL offense. I think I would say he's worth a top 15 pick. Top 10 is a bit of a reach, but at the same time, for me, Broncos makes sense to fit. But he's definitely, I would say he is a top 15 pick.
I just for me I don't I think that he has been a little bit overhyped this season because he's been
I
surrounded
can
by the
see it.
best
No,
team in
I do
football.
see it. I do see it. I see
Um
what you're saying.
so I think that
Winning in college, I know people sometimes just completely throw that out the window, but it's an important thing that you have experience winning when you go into the NFL. And I think JJ
no,
McCarthy, although people are going to say he wasn't the main piece to the Michigan win. He was very, very
No,
clearly the main
he
piece to the
was
Michigan win.
he
It
was a huge
wasn't
piece.
he was a cog along with the rest of the parts. He was the piece to the puzzle that made that click. Michigan have
I
had great
I think
teams in the past that have not been able to get over the line.
I
JJ
think
look,
McCarthy
people
got them over the
I think
line.
I
people
think
really
that
underrate his performance against Ohio State and Alabama, particularly Ohio State. That's one
no,
thing I would
I'm
say.
I'm not going to go out there and say that JJ McCarthy was not impressive in college because he was impressive this year. He was very impressive. He won the national championship, right? Like Michigan won the
Hmm.
national championship and he was their quarterback. He was very impressive. My problem is I just don't see um I don't fully see an NFL quarterback in JJ McCarthy, at least a top end NFL quarterback. And when you're picking in the top 10 picks,
Top end, okay, top end. That's fair. I see. I mean, I think he has potential to be that, but I think I can see why people want to see it. So I see.
I think he's just been a little overhyped. And for to take him first round pick, I understand. I totally get it because this is a guy who won the national championship and
Hmm.
had maybe not a Heisman worthy season, but like close to it.
Hmm.
Um, I just don't see a top 10 pick being spent on a guy who there's a very low chance that he gets into that elite tier of quarterbacks. Could see him
Hmm.
being a good NFL quarterback, but elite, I'm not sure for JJ. Um,
Hmm.
at pick eight, sorry, I'll get into my pick. I think the Falcons stay at this pick. They had the 32nd, the worst in the NFL pass rush win rate last year. Dallas Turner's the pick.
Yeah, I like
This
that.
I thought this would be the consensus pick for the Falcons. I'm going to be honest. When we were going through this, I thought we would all take Turner.
I think they can. I think they can trade down
Turner
and
is the
still get
pick
one of
for
those
Falcons.
top two, top three edge rushers, depending on how much you
I
like
don't
these
think they want a
guys.
top two or three. I think they want Dallas Turner because Dallas Turner is the best edge rusher in this class.
I agree.
Well, we will get into that next time. But uh anything else, or are we moving?
No,
No, no, yeah, we're
nine
moving
Bears.
on.
All right, so first pick for the Bears, they took their quarterback. Second pick for the Bears, I'm tempted to go receiver here and take a Dunze because I haven't taken him off the board.
I don't
I
think any
ha-
of us have.
I had verse written down, but I think I'm actually going to change that up and go Odunze here and make it
Mhm.
a really really scary duo of DJ Moore and Roma Dunze. I'm gonna audible here and take a Dunze.
Yeah, I mean, Caleb Williams is going to be immediately be probably stepping into one of the best possible situations a number one overall pick can set into. And I'm gonna agree with that. I'm gonna take Odunze if he's available here, giving someone I think really has a high floor and also a pretty good ceiling as well. He has potential. I think both of those guys are arguable receiver ones from the moment they step into the NFL. That's how, like I said, Odunze I think would be a receiver one in a lot of different draft classes. So I would say that's a scary duo. And I think Caleb has, again, it's not a bad offensive line either. I think it makes sense that they would take Odunze over an offensive lineman. So yeah, give me him.
Adunze is the pick here if he falls to 9 because it's
Mhm.
absolutely a steal for the Bears. I think if
Mhm.
Neighbors or Odunze falls this far to the Bears, they will be snatched up immediately. The
Yeah,
way I could see this draft going is quarterback at 1, quarterback at 2, quarterback at 3, and then receivers at 4, 5, and 6.
I could
So
see
the
that.
fact that Joe Alt was taken in that conversation at 5, it sort of dropped Odunze because the Falcons don't necessarily need that offensive piece right now. The Titans are looking offensive line. So I think that if the Bears could get Odunze at 9, like watch out for that offense.
Mhm.
All right, so leads us to 10. That's the Jets. And it's going to be a tackle here because Becton is not going to be able to stay healthy. The O-line has been terrible for.
Becton's a free agent also.
Oh, he also is a free agent.
But he
Mhm.
sucks now. Like what?
He
Yeah, he's
was
bad.
okay for a little bit, but he's
No,
not
he
good.
was bad
But
in the year, like one of the worst tackles in the
But
league.
anyway, the Jets' offensive line has been bad for 12 years now. So they're going to try to take a piece that will definitely fail in the long run because it just happens to work that way. It's going to be Fashanu, who I like a lot, but he's condemned to the Jets. And yeah, unfortunate for him is what it is,
Mm-hmm.
though.
Uh-huh. But I'm gonna say I'm gonna go Fuaga because I think I also, again, like I said, the Jets are in win now mode. And as much as I love Olu, and I would probably say he should be, I would probably take him over Fuaga. I think the Jets want a guy that's going to be able to run block for Brees Hall. And I think Fuaga is probably, I would say he's the best run blocker in this class, not to mention he didn't give up a single sack. I don't know if it was throughout college or just his last year, but either way, he's a great pass protector as well. And I think it just makes sense because I think the Jets might be getting one of the top tackles in free agency or someone that might get cut, Khalil Bakhtiari. So I'm gonna say Fuaga will be going to the Jets.
Yeah, I'm gonna take JC Latham because he's the tackle I have not
Mhm.
taken in my top 3 yet. Interestingly, I think a lot of people had Fashanu as their tackle 1 going into the season, but
Yeah, I
as the
know.
season's gone on, he's actually my tackle 4 right now, which
I'd
is
still say
not to
tackle
say
too,
anything
but it's
bad about
mhm.
Fashanu because I think he's a really high ceiling player. Um, I believe the problem with Fashanu is games played. Um, he's younger than the rest of these guys, I believe. So I think that um I love Latham, I love Fuaga, and I really, really love Joe Alt. So I think that the 3 of them are all going to get picked before him, and I all have them ranked before him. So at 10 for the Jets, I'm going to take Fuaga or
Huh,
Latham.
that's
Sorry,
interesting.
I don't remember which ones
Mhm.
I've taken.
That's interesting because I've seen Fashanu fall a lot.
Yeah,
No,
I
I don't think
mean,
he's had a good year too. I mean
yeah.
it's not
I mean
something I
it
don't think it's
happens
something he did
randomly,
wrong. I
but
think it's
I'd
the
still say
things that
he's
Alt
tackle.
and Latham and Fuaga have and even Amarius Mims have done right
Tyler
because those
Guyton.
guys have been fantastic this year.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for this class. I feel like almost every position's just stacked on depth.
I
Yeah.
agree.
So, a lot to look forward to with draft content. Unfortunately, we have to cut this episode off. Nothing much more to talk about. Actually, that's what the plan was. I don't know why I'm saying we're cutting it short, but that's going to be all for today. A little bit of an awkward outro. I'm Dylan Shalom here with Serge Kadali and Charlie Nidell signing off from the Back Pocket Podcast. Come back to us for more draft content in the future. We're going to look to pump some stuff out in the coming weeks. I have spring break soon. I'll be all over it. And then consequentially, we will have the draft live stream, which I still don't know how we're going to be doing that, but I'm excited
I think
for
it
it.
should be a
Get it
more
done.
regular live stream. Not sure yet.
Yeah, we'll figure it out as we
Mhm.
go. But yeah, like and subscribe, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, everything that you can because we're awesome and you should watch us all the time. I'm Dylan Shalom, signing off.